Well, friends, it is now nearly 5 weeks after our last meeting. So I'd like to quickly recapitulate what was discussed in our previous class, especially in the last part of that class. If you can recall, we had just had an introduction to the subject of the causal body, Karana Sharira. We heard that the causal body is of the nature of ignorance and bliss, Avidya and Ananda. That it is called the causal body because it is the cause of the subtle and gross bodies. It's like the seed that contains the tree in a potential form. And that as ignorance, the causal body covers the Atman like a sheath. All this we had heard. Now, as I was saying, the word ignorance has to be understood correctly. We are not talking about ordinary ignorance here, we are talking about metaphysical ignorance. The ignorance that hides the reality and projects the illusory world of variety. As you know, according to Vedanta, Brahman, Satchidananda, is the only reality. Brahman is one without a second. Everything else is unreal, unsubstantial. They are said to be products of ignorance. Vedanta philosophers use several different terms to describe this metaphysical ignorance. Maya, Prakriti, Ajnana, Avidya, Avyakta, Avyakrita. All these different terms are used practically synonymously. Each of these terms has its own distinct philosophical connotation, but in actual practice, these distinctions are not always strictly maintained. So we have half a dozen words that have their own specific meanings, but which practically mean more or less the same thing. Maya means illusion, Prakriti means nature or matter, Ajnana means false or wrong knowledge, Avidya means absence of right knowledge, Avyakta means unmanifested, and Avyakrita means undifferentiated. But as I said, the words are often interchanged. And then we have, of course, Shakti. All these six are personified as Shakti or cosmic energy, the power of Brahman. Now, this metaphysical ignorance, which Shankaracharya calls Maya in the coming verses, this metaphysical ignorance has two aspects. It appears to us in two modes, depending on how we look at it. One is the cosmic or collective aspect, and the other is the individual aspect. From the collective standpoint, Maya is one, but from the individual standpoint, it is many. It is like this. You can look at a number of trees from the collective standpoint and describe them as a wood. But you can also regard a wood from the standpoint of the trees and describe the wood as a number of trees. Or, to give you another example, from the collective standpoint, you may describe a body of water as a lake. And from the individual standpoint, you may describe a lake as quantities of water. It is exactly the same with collective Maya and individual Maya also. In either case, Maya hides the true nature of Brahman. the infinite and eternal absolute appears as a finite being limited by time and space. In association with cosmic Maya, Brahman appears as Ishvara, the personal God. And in association with the individual Maya, the same Brahman appears as the Jiva, the individual soul. So in this way, Maya becomes the Upadhi, or the limiting factor superimposed upon Brahman. It is technically, Upadhi is technically called limiting adjunct, something that is attached to Brahman. An Upadhi seems to alter or limit the true nature of an object. But this limitation is only apparent, seeming, not real. This we should not forget. Maya, whether cosmic or individual, Maya doesn't bring about any real change in Brahman. When Maya is overcome in the highest spiritual experience, say Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when Maya is overcome, both the personal God and the individual soul, both of them merge in Brahman and the three become one. Then Brahman alone exists. So, collective Maya is the Upadhi of Brahman, and individual Maya is the Upadhi of the Jiva. The collective Maya consists of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, the three gunas with whose help Ishvara or Saguna Brahman creates the material universe. This is why it is known as the causal body. It conceals Brahman like a sheath, but through it the bliss of Brahman permeates the Ishvara. So it is called Ishvara's blissful sheath. At the time of cosmic dissolution, when a kalpa, when a world cycle comes to an end, all gross and subtle bodies merge in the cosmic Maya. So it is called the cosmic sleep, pralaya. It is this cosmic Maya that is the energy or power that is inherent in Ishvara. This is what we worship as Shakti, the Divine Mother. Anyhow, in the same way, from the individual Maya, the ego, the mind, the senses, and the body of the Jiva, these are produced. So this is known as the causal body of the Jiva. During deep sleep, the gross and subtle bodies of the Jiva merge in the causal body. That is why the causal body is often designated as the individual Maya. In deep sleep, the individual Maya remains in an undifferentiated causal form, and it conceals the Atman like a sheath. But again, through this causal body, through it, the bliss of the Atman permeates the Jiva in deep sleep. Deep sleep is a state where there is no pain or suffering that is experienced in the waking or dream states. This is why this is also called the blissful sheath. So you see the parallels between cosmic Maya and individual Maya. As Swami Vivekananda said, the macrocosm and the microcosm are built on the same plan. The individual Maya of the Jiva is not different from the cosmic Maya of Ishvara. The macrocosm and the microcosm The two are in reality one. There is no essential difference between a wood and the trees that constitute that wood. No essential difference between the lake and the quantities of water that constitute it. The difference only lies in how we look at them. The distinction between the cosmic and the individual. This is something important. This I forgot to mention in our last class. The distinction between the cosmic and the individual, this distinction is visible only at the gross and subtle levels, only in the manifest state. There, in those two at those two levels, you can talk of separate bodies and the aggregate of creation. You can talk of individual minds and the cosmic mind. But at the causal level, no such distinction is possible. The individual and the collective are, of course, all there, even in the causal state, but it is not evident. For the simple reason that the causal state is an unmanifest state. This is the reason why Shankaracharya treats Karana Sharira and Maya as identical. I repeat, at the causal level, no distinction between individual and collective is possible. Even if they do exist, they are not evident because they are in an unmanifest state. So, that is why Shankaracharya treats both Karana Sharira and Maya as identical. They are one and the same. So, now we have, I think, sufficient background knowledge about Maya as the causal body. It may sound somewhat technical, but it is really not all that difficult to understand. If we go over it a couple of times and familiarize ourselves with the ideas, everything will become quite clear. Anyhow, let us begin with the verses. Just so we remember, Shankaracharya is still answering the question, Kosavanatma, what is the not self? The answer comes in three parts. The 20 verses from 72 to 91, those 20 verses were the first part devoted to the Sthula Sharira, gross body. Then the next 14 verses, 92 to 105, they formed the second part devoted to the Sukshma Sharira or subtle body. Then we had two intervening verses, 105 and 106, on the blissful nature of the Atman. And now we come to the last part, which is 16 verses long, from 108 to 123. And here Shankaracharya explains the Karana Sharira, causal body. So altogether, Shankara has devoted roughly 50 verses to the subject of the Anatman. But let us take up the verses. Now, verse 108. It says, Avyaktanamni Paramesha Shaktir Anadya Vidya Trigunatmika Para Karyanumeya Sudhiyaiva Maya Yaya Jagat Sarvamidam Prasuyate. Avyaktanamni Paramesha Shakti Anadya Vidya Trigunatmika Para Karyanumeya Sudhiyaiva Maya Yaya Jagat Sarvamidam Prasuyate. She who is called Avyakta, unmanifest, She is the divine power of the Supreme Lord. She is beginningless ignorance. She is composed of the three gunas and is greater than the effects as their cause. I repeat, she who is called Avyakta, unmanifest, is the divine power of the Supreme Lord. She is beginningless ignorance, is composed of the three gunas, and is greater than the effects. Then we come to the second line. This Maya can only be inferred by an intelligent person from the effects she produces. It is she who gives birth to this whole universe. This Maya can only be inferred by an intelligent person from the effects she produces. It is she who gives birth to this whole universe. Shankaracharya says, Avyaktanamni Paramesha Shaktihi. She who is called Avyakta or unmanifest is the divine power of the Supreme Lord. So he speaks of Maya as the power of the Lord. Avyakta is the cosmic energy in the potential condition. This mysterious power contains within itself, it is potential, it contains within itself the possibilities, the potency of projecting the infinite forms of this universe. As I said, just as a tiny seed contains the possibilities, the potency of an immense multi-branched tree, it is within this Avyakta that all the desires, all the experiences, all the fruits of actions of all the jivas of the previous cycle, it is in this Avyakta that everything lies latent during the period of dissolution, pralaya. And these latent desires and karmas determine the forms that are projected again through the Avyakta during the next cycle. So, Maya or Avyakta is the causal potency, it is the potential energy of Ishvara's Prakriti. It is the origin of the universe. But it is not a separate entity. According to Sankhya and Yoga philosophies, Prakriti is a separate entity. They are dualistic philosophies. They have two categories, two main categories, Purusha and Prakriti. But Vedanta is non-dualistic. That is why, according to Vedanta, Maya or Prakriti is subordinate to Saguna Brahman, Ishvara. It belongs to him as his power, as his Shakti. And you can't really make a distinction between power and the holder of that power. Like you can't make a clear distinction between fire and its power to burn. So the Upanishad says, know that Prakriti is Maya and that the Supreme Lord is the wielder of Maya. The whole universe is filled with what are nothing but parts of his being. So Prakriti is Ishvara's power of Maya. It is through his power of Maya that Ishvara is the all-knowing, all-powerful creator, preserver and destroyer of the cosmos. Which means Ishvara holds it, Ishvara controls it. He is the master of Maya. Neither Maya nor her manifestations, neither of them have any influence over Ishvara. The term Maya applies both to Ishvara's creative power and to his creation. It signifies both the causal and the manifest states, both the karana and the karya states of the universe. Then, this power of Maya, Shankaracharya says, is anadi avidya. It is of the nature of beginningless ignorance. Please don't forget, it is metaphysical ignorance, the ignorance that hides the reality and projects the illusory world of variety. Advaita Vedanta holds that this Maya and her creation, they are without beginning. The universe with all its living beings, with all its non-living objects, it must all have existed in the causal state before their manifestation. Why? Because something cannot come out of nothing. Or to put it the other way around, because nothing can become something and something can't become nothing. I repeat, nothing cannot become something and something cannot become nothing. Not only that, if living beings came into existence accidentally, by chance, without previously existing in some potential forms, then their happiness and misery would be undeserved. Then the difference between their joys and sorrows can't be explained. This is the problem. How could an all-wise, impartial God allow some to suffer and others to enjoy without cause, without reason? Then God would not be God. So Vedanta maintains before their manifestation, the living and the non-living, which make up the universe, all this must have existed in an unmanifest causal state. The world always is, whether manifest or unmanifest. In the Vedantic view, creation doesn't mean an absolute beginning of the universe. It means the development of the universe from the potential to the manifest state. It is a projection from the latent to the manifest form. The origination, continuation, and dissolution of the universe form one complete cycle, rotating continuously under Ishvara's rulership. Time is cyclic. It's an eternal process. So, the beginning of the universe actually means the beginning of a cycle, of a world cycle, kalpa. And dissolution doesn't mean the creation is annihilated. It doesn't mean it's annihilation, but it's reabsorption into the causal state, from which it re-emerges at the beginning of the next cycle. So, this is anadi, the anaditva of Maya. Then comes the word avidya. The word is derived from the root vid. Vid has two meanings. One meaning is to know. So avidya means the reverse of it, absence of knowledge, ignorance. The other meaning is, vid also means to exist. By this meaning, avidya means non-existence. So Maya is ignorance and non-existence. This is something to remember. Maya is ignorance and non-existence, which is what illusion is. That means Maya is something that has no reality in the absolute sense, or that which has no independent existence. It's like a pot made of clay or an ornament made of gold, to take the Upanishadic example. The pot or ornament is only name and form. They are just attributes. The substance is clay or gold. So which of them is real? Substance or attribute? What happens when the pot is broken or the ornament is melted? The attributes, name and form, these go, but the substance stays. So the substance is real and the attributes are unreal. The attribute only has a dependent existence. That is to say, the attribute depends on the substance for its existence. In the same way, Brahman, pure consciousness, is the only ultimate substance. Yes, consciousness is the only substance. That is the absolute reality. Maya or matter is only name and form. It is unsubstantial. Matter has only a dependent, a relative reality according to Vedanta. Then we have the word Trigunatmika, composed of the three gunas. Maya is constituted of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. The word guna is usually translated as quality, which doesn't really give the precise meaning of the original. Sattva, Rajas and Tamas are not qualities of Maya. I mean, not in the same sense that hardness is a quality of metal, or softness is the quality of butter, or heat, or fire. Essentially, the gunas are the very substance, the very ingredients of Maya. They are compared to the three strands that make up the rope of Maya, the rope by which Maya binds us to the illusory world. Guna means something that binds. So, Maya, composed of the gunas, is the rope that binds us to the illusory world. But Maya has no separate existence independent of the gunas. The three gunas are present in varying degrees in all objects in nature, gross or subtle, including our bodies, minds, and egos. The food that we eat, the thoughts that we think, the work that we do. In short, everything belonging to this relative universe of Maya contains these three gunas. And the last word of the first line is para, greater than all her effects. That is to say, Maya is subtler than any created being or object in the relative world. Maya is subtler than all of them because she is their cause. They have all come out of her. Starting from Hiranyagarbha, the first manifestation of the Absolute in the relative universe, starting from Hiranyagarbha down to a clump of grass. Everything has emerged from Maya. But Maya is para also because she is beyond the range of the mind and the senses. They can't perceive her because they are themselves products of Maya. And that is why Shankaracharya says in the next line, because she cannot be perceived by the senses, then how to know of her existence? Karyanumeya sudhiyaiva maya. Maya can only be inferred. She can't be seen. She can only be inferred by an intelligent person from the effects she produces. We can't see Maya because it is a state of potency. Maya can't be seen in her potential state. We can only see the effects she produces. And it is from the effects that we know the nature of the cause. First of all, Maya is avyakta, unmanifest. And then she is para, extremely subtle. So, this divine magician, sorceress, if you will, zaubering, it is in the feminine. This sorceress is invisible. Her existence can only be inferred by the effects she has produced. But what is inference? Please listen carefully. Inference is described as reaching a conclusion that is true. Reaching a conclusion that is true. How? By observing facts and by applying logical reasoning on them. Inference is reaching a conclusion that is true by observing facts and applying logical reasoning to them. This, I think, is a very brief definition of inference. To take the classic example, when you see smoke rising from a hill, when you see smoke rising from a hill far away, you infer the existence of fire, though you don't actually see the fire. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the magician alone is real. His magic is illusory. When we watch a magic show, we can infer the presence of the magician behind the curtain, though we don't see him right before our eyes. That is what inference is. And who can infer Maya in this manner? Most of us are swept away in the magic show, by the magic show. That is why Shankaracharya says, not everybody, sudhiya eva, only by those whose intelligence is sharp and pure. Sharpness of mind alone is not enough. It must also be accompanied by purity of heart. It is only then that intelligence becomes sudhi, wisdom. Not just by independent reasoning, but reasoning that is consistent with the teachings of the Shastras and the spiritual teacher. Because Maya too, like God and Atman, Maya too is beyond the range of the mind and the senses. That is why revelation is the only source of knowledge when it comes to these supersensuous truths. So, karyanumeya sudhiya eva maya. And finally, yaya jagat sarvamidam prasuyate. It is she who gives birth to this whole universe. That means Maya alone is the root of the entire creation. As we have been seeing, the body, the sense organs, the vital force, the mind, the ego, and all their functions. Not only that, the objects of our experience, pleasures, pains, and all other kinds of experience, the gross and subtle elements, everything. In short, the whole objective universe is an emanation from Maya. So, Avyaktanamni Paramesha Shakti Anadya Vidya Trigunatmika Para Karyanumeya Sudhyaiva Maya Yaya Jagat Sarvamidam Prasuyate. She who is called Avyakta is the divine power of the Supreme Lord. She is beginningless ignorance. She is composed of the three gunas, and she is greater than the effects as their cause. This Maya can only be inferred by an intelligent person from the effects she produces. It is she who gives birth to this whole universe. Now we come to a verse that is without doubt, the best and the most beautiful definition of Maya. Verse 109. Here Shankaracharya describes the paradox of Maya. Sannapyasannapyubhayatmikano bhinnapyabhinnapyubhayatmikano Sangapyananga hyubhayatmikano mahadbhuta nirvachaniya rupa. Sannapyasannapyubhayatmikano bhinnapyabhinnapyubhayatmikano Sangapyananga hyubhayatmikano mahadbhuta nirvachaniya rupa. She is neither real nor unreal, nor both. She is neither different from reality, nor non-different from it, nor both. She is neither composed of parts, nor an integral whole, nor both. She is most wonderful. Her nature is indescribable. She is neither real nor unreal, nor both. She is neither different nor non-different from reality, nor both. She is neither composed of parts, nor an integral whole, nor both. She is most wonderful. Her nature is indescribable. First, Sannapyasannapi, Sannapi, Asannapi, Ubhayatmikano. She is neither real, nor unreal, nor both. Maya can't be described as either being nor non-being. That is why Maya is said to be indefinable. If it were being in the true sense, then we would be able to perceive this tangible universe, which is the effect of Maya. We would be able to perceive this universe at all times, because being what is can never become non-being, what is not. Existence can't become non-existence. The real can never become unreal. But the universe is not seen in samadhi, or for that matter, it is not seen in deep, dreamless sleep. So, how to say that Maya, or this universe which is Maya in manifest form, how to say that it is real? On the other hand, if Maya were non-being, if she were totally non-existent, completely unreal, like, to quote the classic example again, like the son of a childless woman, or like the horns of a hare. If Maya were so unreal, then we would never be able to perceive this universe of variety. We couldn't see the world of names and forms as real, but we do perceive this universe. We can't deny that. That is why Maya is said to be something positive. Something positive means Maya and its effect, the universe, they do have a positive existence which cannot be dismissed as unreal. They are seen to exist. They are seen as something substantial from the relative standpoint. Though they are unsubstantial or non-existent from the standpoint of Brahman or the absolute reality. The word positive indicates Maya's capability of producing something, of producing this visible universe. That is something positive. So that also indicates Maya is not pure negation. That is why Maya is said to be not ignorance as such, but something opposed to knowledge. Something antagonistic to knowledge. Ajnana, avidya. In the sense that Maya and its manifestation disappear with the dawn of Brahman knowledge. When jnana dawns, ajnana vanishes. When reality is perceived, then there is no perception of unreality. Brahman and Maya cannot coexist. The absolute and the relative, the one and the many, like light and darkness, they can't coexist. You don't perceive both of them together at the same time. When one of them is seen, the other is non-existent. They're not even correlatives. The two are totally unrelated to one another. So, sannapi asannapi ubhayatmikano. Then, bhinnapyabhinnapyubhayatmikano. She is neither different nor non-different from reality, nor both. That is to say, Maya is not separate from Brahman, but at the same time she is not identical with Brahman. As long as one sees Maya or its effects, one may say that it belongs to Brahman, because nothing exists ultimately but Brahman. Brahman happens to be the only reality, one without a second. So there can't be anything separate from it. That is why Vedantists describe Maya as the mysterious power dwelling in the Supreme Lord. It is through this mysterious power that the illusion of Srishti, Sthiti and Laya, it is through this mysterious power that this illusion is produced. But from the standpoint of Brahman, which is all light and knowledge, there is no Maya. When we are far away from the sun, there is light and shadow. But in the sun, there is nothing but light. When I am identified with Brahman, I don't even see a trace of Maya. From the relative standpoint, Brahman's true nature seems to be obscured, fatigued, by a mysterious power that lies within Brahman itself and brings into existence the panorama of this phenomenal universe. What do we mean by a panorama? A panorama is a continuously passing or changing scene. It is an unfolding of events, a continuous unfolding of events. And what do we find in this panorama of the phenomenal universe? We see the illusion of time, space, and causality. And this hides pure consciousness and projects the multiple universe. We see the illusion of ego and non-ego and their mutual relationship. The infinite Brahman appears as the individual soul with the ego, mind, senses, and a physical body. Maya, through its names and forms, manifests the multiple objects of this relative universe. But what is it that appears as those multiple objects? It has to be none other than Brahman, Brahman itself, stamped, so to say, by names and forms. It is all the work of Maya. So, bhinnapi abhinnapi ubhayatmikano. Then, sangapyananga yubhayatmikano. She is neither composed of parts, nor an integral whole, nor both. How? For the simple reason that whatever is composed of parts is a compound, and all compounds have to be products, and products have beginnings. Our own bodies are the best example of this. Anything that is produced must have a beginning. But we already saw that Maya is beginningless. So she has to be partless. But then we also heard that Maya is composed of the three gunas, that they are her constituents, which means she is made up of them. This the previous verse said, and the next verse is going to say that again. So if we don't admit the gunas, and say Maya is partless, we can't explain the universe with all its diversities. And if we say Maya is composed of parts, then we can't say she is beginningless. Nor can we say she is both. Ubhayatmika, no. Because the real and the unreal, being and non-being, difference and non-difference, being composed of parts and being indivisible, being the indivisible whole, they are all contradictory to one another. They are mutually exclusive. A thing can't be both this and that at the same time. Then what is Maya? Vedanta defines Maya as vilakshana, something other than, something positive and something other than these pairs of opposites. Sat, asat, bhinna, abhinna, sa-anga, ananga. Vilakshana means something that defies description. Nothing can be categorically said about Maya. Nothing can be said about her in a clear or definite way. So Shankaracharya finally says, Maya is Mahadbhuta Anirvachaniya Rupa. She is most wonderful. Her nature is indescribable. We can never understand this mysterious, inscrutable phenomenon called Maya. It's a most strange meeting of contraries, and it will always be profoundly confusing to the human mind. In fact, this is the very work of Maya, to confuse. Swamiji summarizes it beautifully. Maya is not illusion as it is popularly interpreted. Maya is real, yet it is not real. It is real in the sense that the real is behind it and gives it its appearance of reality. So that which is real in Maya is the reality itself, showing in and through Maya. Yet the reality is not seen. So that which is seen is unreal, and it has no real independent existence of itself. It is dependent upon the real for its existence. So Swamiji says, Maya then is a paradox, real yet not real, an illusion yet not an illusion. He says, one who knows the real sees in Maya not illusion but reality. Very important. One who knows the real sees in Maya not illusion but reality. Why? Because Brahman is non-dual. And one who knows not the real sees in Maya illusion and thinks it real. This is what Maya is. This is the paradox. It can't be said better. So, sannapya ubhayatmikano, bhinnapya ubhayatmikano, sanga apyananga ubhayatmikano, mahadbhuta nirvachaniya rupa. She is neither real nor unreal nor both. She is neither different nor non-different from reality, nor both. She is neither composed of parts, nor is she an integral whole, nor both. She is most wonderful. Her nature is indescribable. So there is no solution to the problem of Maya. The riddle can't be solved, but it can be transcended. There is a way out. This is what Shankaracharya points out in the following verse. In verse 110. He says, Shuddhadvaya Brahma Vibodhanashya Sarpa Brahmo Rajju Vivekato Yatha. Shuddhadvaya Brahma Vibodhanashya Sarpa Brahmo Rajju Vivekato Yatha. Rajas tamas sattvamiti prasiddha gunas tadiya pratithai swakaryaihi. Rajas tamas sattvamiti prasiddha gunas tadiya pratithai swakaryaihi. This Maya is destroyed by the direct realization of the pure Brahman, the one without a second, just as the illusion of a snake is removed by the knowledge of the rope. I repeat, this Maya is destroyed by the direct realization of the pure Brahman, the one without a second, just as the illusion of a snake is removed by the knowledge of the rope. Her gunas, that is to say, the constituents she is composed of, her gunas are called Rajas, Tamas and Sattva. They are well known by their distinctive actions. Now the first line. Shuddhadvaya Brahma Vibodhanashya Sarpa Brahmo Rajju Vivekato Yatha. Maya is destroyed by the direct realization of the pure Brahman, the one without a second, just as the illusion of a snake is removed by the knowledge of the rope. Just a while ago, we heard that Avidya means both not knowing and non-existence. Not knowing, non-existence. Just as darkness vanishes when light is brought in, ignorance or wrong knowledge disappears when right knowledge dawns. When reality is perceived, what is unreal is automatically negated. Reality is the ground on which the illusion appears. The illusion of the snake depends on the reality of the rope. Let me repeat Swamiji's words. One who doesn't know the real sees in Maya illusion and thinks it real. One who knows the real sees in Maya not illusion but reality. Please remember, Maya is only a superimposition, ubalagirum, due to ignorance. When the pure non-dual Brahman, which is of the nature of Sat and Chit, being and consciousness, when this reality is experienced, Maya and all her illusory effects are naturally negated. So the problem of relativity cannot be solved from within the domain of relativity, but by systematically denying, negating everything that is relative, relativity can be transcended. That is what it means. What remains at the end of this process of negation, neti, that is the absolute reality. But then Shankaracharya is not yet finished with Maya. In the second line, he returns to the subject of the three gunas, because a little later, in the following verses, he will be describing the characteristics, the effects of these gunas that can be observed in all created things. So, Rajas tamas sattvamiti prasiddha gunastadiya pratithai swakaryai. Her gunas are called Rajas, Tamas and Sattva. They are well known by their distinctive actions. In verse 108, it said that the existence of Maya has to be inferred by an intelligent person from its effects. Shankaracharya is about to explain those effects here by referring to the gunas, their nature, their characteristics, their actions. Now, when we say Maya is invisible, it is as good as saying that the gunas are also invisible, because Maya is made up of them. She has no separate existence independent of the gunas. She is the gunas. And the gunas have to be known by their effects. Pratithai swakaryai. That means Maya has to be inferred from the gunas, and the gunas can be inferred by their actions and effects. We can think of the gunas as something like energies, in a manner of speaking, because they are the very substance of Maya. If Maya is Shakti, if she is cosmic energy, then the gunas also have to be energies in a sense. So, as you know, Sattva is the principle of calmness. It is conducive, that is, it is helpful for purity, knowledge, joy. Rajas is the principle of motion. It leads to desire, action, restlessness. And tamas is the principle of inertia. It results in inaction, dullness, delusion. You've heard these things times without number. Sattva is light, tamas is heavy, and rajas is medium. Because of their unique characteristics, sattva is represented as white, rajas as red, tamas as black. Anyhow, the three gunas always exist together. There can't be pure sattva without rajas or tamas. There can't be pure rajas without sattva or tamas or pure tamas without sattva or rajas. They form a trinity, they form a triad. They invariably coexist and they are inseparable. But everywhere, in all living beings and non-living objects, everywhere, one or another of the triad dominates the other two. One is more powerful than the other two. And it is this preponderance, mehrheit, of one of the three that makes the difference in things. The proportion of the dominating guna, that varies, of course. But it is the predominance of that particular guna that gives the thing its peculiar nature. All this we'll be seeing in the next 19 verses, from 111 to 119, which we will be taking up in our next class. So, Shuddhadvaya Brahma Vibodhanashya Sarpa Brahmo Rajju Vivekato Yatha Rajas Tamas Sattvamiti Prasiddha Gunastadiya Pratithai Swakaryai. This Maya is destroyed by the direct realization of the pure Brahman, the one without a second, just as the illusion of a snake is removed by the knowledge of the robe. Her gunas are called Rajas, Tamas and Sattva. They are well known by their distinctive actions.